Has DC absolutely lost it? Hey comic freaks, and welcome back to Dangerous Comics. I'm your host, Dane Georges. Today we're talking about DC's absolute line of comics. Kind of taking inspiration from Marvel with the Ultimate line of comics, this feels like a very similar vein. And obviously this series has been going for a little bit. We had our introduction to the whole concept back in the All-In Special, a flipbook style comic. So we had a story both directions, and this was spearheaded by Josh Williamson and Scott Snyder. Kind of harkens back to what they did with the New 52, but going in a little bit of a different direction. So rather than totally messing with their main continuity, they are rather starting a new universe in this absolute line that's kind of a jumping off point for new fans. So let's start by looking at this All-In Special, and then we can talk a little bit more about the individual issues of Absolute Batman, Absolute Wonder Woman, and Absolute Superman. These are our spearhead titles. There's a few others that have been announced. We can talk about those at the end of this episode, but for now, let's jump on in and let's set this baby up. How do we get to the Absolute Universe? How do we get to these comics? Well, let's find out with the All-In Special. Now, there's two directions we could go with this. We could start with the Absolute Universe or the main DC Universe story. I think for context, it's probably better to start with the DC one, but it's really cool that you can read this either way. Let's start with the DC Universe side, and this book is written by Joshua Williamson and Scott Snyder. Scott Snyder continues on to write Absolute Batman, and Joshua Williamson is writing Superman over in the main DC Universe. So they're both kind of tackling different sides of the coin. We start just with this idea that the Justice League is reforming, and there's handing out ID badges for everyone, and this is going to set up what Mark Waid is doing with Justice League Unlimited, of them opening the Justice League back up after the Justice League kind of disbanding after Dark Crisis, which was another book that was written by Joshua Williamson with art here as well by Daniel Sempere. Oh man, this book rocks. We see the heroes all going to the Watchtower. We're reestablishing the satellite Watchtower, bringing everyone together, and right when we get everyone together, they're celebrating. There is, of course, got to be something to go wrong. Or else what would we be doing here, right? An ad here, too, for Justice League Unlimited, which is kind of like what this team is getting together for. But we see that they're being attacked, and really cool element, the speech balloons that are coming in are upside down, so they are connected to the other flip side of the book. Here we also see where the dark side part of the story is starting to actually like burn through the pages. So I like that idea of like these two universes colliding and these two timelines or stories colliding, and it's in the physical form of the media it's printed on. So these pages are literally burning up because they're conflicting with each other in the sequence. And we see that it's Darkseid breaking through, and he's going to fight the Justice League. Something's up with him. He looks way different than the last time we saw him. He's got a giant axe arm, which is pretty badass, and he is in a way different costume, got this hood. He's coming in hot. More of the DC titles are going to be available. And so Darkseid is squaring up with everybody, but he's kind of having like dialogue that makes it seem like he's not really talking to them. He's speaking to somebody else. Our magic users are coming together to come up with a solution. Everyone's just throwing everything they got at him. And in the fight, it's kind of unsure to the Justice League what exactly happened, but all of a sudden, thank you, Darkseid ends. And we see these two universes splitting apart, and boom, as Darkseid is gone. And Flash is saying here, I've only seen one of these before, a rip in space and time. And so the end of Darkseid also came with this DC universe being sealed off from other universes. So now they do not have access to the multiverse. But we see Booster trying to go through time, and he lands in a weird place where all of a sudden we see the Omega sign all over everything. So something is in the future, something's coming, and he looks at his Legion ring, because that's how Booster's able to fly, as he has a Legion of Superheroes ring, and he looks down and it's a Omega sign. So Darkseid is taking over the Legion, and we get this cool center spread as we're going to flip the book, but we get Dan Mora here drawing this Omega Legion, and we've got a cool way to make you flip the book too, of Darkseid being like my Legion, and then that word balloon flips upside down, so we could see it both ways. Love some Dan Mora art. scraggly Darkseid, but some evil-looking versions of the Legion. Fun stuff. And to be continued across the DC universe, to be continued across the Absolute universe. But love the idea of using the flip format, and on this side, we get art by Wes Craig. Probably best known for his work on Deadly Class with Rick Remender, but we get probably the better part of this story and the real meat of the story from Darkseid's perspective. We see what's been going on, and we see that Darkseid's making a sacrifice of blood and chopping off his own arm. We got clues on the other side, and we're seeing everything kind of pay off in this flip of the book. But he sacrifices his arm, and he gets his new axe hand. But we just see that Darkseid is really willing to sacrifice everything. And he's arguing with his son, Calabac. We have Granny Goodness. The whole cast is here. And he says at this moment that the heroes are weak, their powers diminished. They are consumed by earthly conflicts. And this is coming out of Absolute Power, which would have been the event by Mark Waid and Dan Mora that kind of set up this. So a lot of setup. But we see that Darkseid is really willing. He's got his mission in sight. He's about to find the truth that he needs. It says, "A hunger I must follow alone, which means I have no more need for you, for any of you. Go!" And he shoots his Omega beams at them. And then that page turned to Darkseid killing his own child, throwing him into this machine, bonding complete. And this is just upgrading Darkseid, getting him closer to his end goal. With the machine operational, there's only one thing left to do: find him, the one being who might help me understand. And both comics are really cool that they start with the same hook, with "it started as an idea." And so did this side where Superman is talking about the Justice League, and it started as an idea. So hope, and then Darkseid's idea, which is despair. And these two universes that are kind of built on very different moral compasses. But he's just tearing through everyone. He's going into hell now. He's ripping through the hordes of demons. And we have kind of all the evil demonic characters of the DC universe trying to fight back, all the way to Trigon, Raven's father. And then he's going to heaven, ripping through heaven. And here we have a cool inclusion of a character from Grant Morrison's JLA run. Grant Morrison used Zariel, or made him, because at the time he wasn't allowed to use Hawkman, so he wanted to use a character like that, and ended up using an angel from heaven, which introduced a cool other kind of pantheon to the DC universe. We already had like hell, but kind of giving a more established heaven. So cool to see that. Darkseid's tearing through heaven and hell to get what he wants. And now he's to the dark side of the moon to fight Eclipso, but we just see that nothing's really going to stand in Darkseid's way. He takes down Eclipso. Checkmate, he gets the shard, or the stone that Eclipso uses, and he goes to his final goal, which is to bond with the Spectre. So he wants more control. He wants to know what his purpose is. He wants to make a wish. He's the ultimate machine. It's a miracle machine. And so we finally get the reveal of what was built for him and what he had to make it the sacrifice for. It's a miracle machine, which is what Superman used and created at the end of Final Crisis as well. Superman activates and creates a miracle machine to make a wish that everyone would have a happy ending. So this is Darkseid using the miracle machine for a very nefarious purpose, to bond with the Spectre. So that is him kind of bonding with this all-knowing, all-seeing presence of the universe. And here is the insertion of our A plot into the B plot here, as Darkseid is bonding with the Spectre and transforming. He's kind of becoming that Omega version we saw. He then is thrown into the Justice League watchtower by the Spectre to get help. So basically throwing him into the thick of it. And that's why it seemed like Darkseid was talking to somebody else, because he was truly battling the Spectre the whole time. And Darkseid is just trying to bond with the Spectre to understand his role in the universe and understand his finality of the universe. And Spectre is telling him, "This is your role, Darkseid. It is an honor, divine, essential." He says, "What if I want more?" And here we get really cool moments of Darkseid's history. We start with his first appearance in Jimmy Olsen 134, and here we see that it is this guy talking to Darkseid on that telescreen, done here by Wes Craig. Really cool homage there to Jack Kirby's art. And here we end on Batman's final showdown with Darkseid in Final Crisis, when he shot the Radion bullet at Darkseid and killed him. or at least killed that mortal form of him. So really cool inclusion of the DC universe, kind of the history of Darkseid, paying homage and respect to Jack Kirby, Grant Morrison, all the great stories that have kind of built this character up. But we have kind of this ultimate showdown of Darkseid versus Superman, because these are the two kind of big ideas of the universe. But we see that it's the Spectre working through Superman that ends this. And with his death, or this end of him, we see the hand rising, kind of like Kronos saw that in the Green Lantern books at the very beginning of the universe. Here we see Darkseid's hand holding this universe, and we see this as Wes Craig after George Perez. So awesome illustration here, but this is like the start of the absolute universe with the death of Darkseid. And as I end, I begin again, but this time alone. And so he is in his own universe, cut off from the rest of the DC universe, and these are the heroes. They're going to arise out of his universe. We have this Wonder Woman, this dark magic hellspawn Wonder Woman. We have this gigantic beefcake Batman that's just like brutalizing everybody, and Superman, who's a little mysterious, glowing costume, and kind of just setting up what's to come. Sealing the whole thing together as we bookend this back to Booster Gold and his trip to the future, and we see this again from another perspective, and then back to the Legion. So just a really cool comic, really fun. I really think it's a missed opportunity that they didn't carry this idea of the flip book over to these other comics. I think if the idea is truly that you want a new readership, if you want people to jump in, I think they should have done something where it was like you were buying Superman and then you also were getting Absolute Superman. I think that would have been a better way to get people hooked, and then you could have eventually separated the two. But to start out, I think it would have been really fun to have that duality. I think it's a really big missed opportunity, and in a way that you could have maybe hooked people in both universes right off the bat. After looking at the DC All-In Special, let's look at the 3 titles that it spawned, starting with Absolute Batman. And so Absolute Batman was the center of a lot of attention because of this Batman design. This is a book by Scott Snyder and Nick Dragotta. And it's a really fun team. Scott Snyder obviously having a big history with Batman, starting back with the New 52, but really fun team up here of him with Nick, because Nick is probably best known for his work on East of West with Jonathan Hickman, which was a great sci-fi Western story about the apocalypse happening. Really fun. Definitely an episode for another day, but big fan of Nick's work, and this is no exception. Really hyped for this book. I think there was a lot of hype around it, and I was kind of worried that it wasn't going to pay off, and it really did. It's a fun take. I don't know if I think it goes as different as I think they could have. I feel that way about the Batman and Superman titles. It is different. We're having like a Batman with a different kind of origin. We're building this up around the zoo. So there's a big incident that happens at the zoo. He's got kind of a cast of friends that might go on to be his rogues gallery. It is a fun take on the world, definitely taking it to the extreme, and always fun to see these characters reimagined, like Black Mask here. Really cool design that only like Nick Dragotta could have done. Really reminds me of some of his East of West designs as well. But we do get a different kind of Bruce Wayne. He's a much more like of the people kind of guy. He's not coming from like money. He's an engineer. He's a little bit more ground level, taking out just like thugs. And he's got a little bit of a different kind of operation and a little bit more brutal than our normal Batman. But really great art, really fun stuff. This is a really good book to check out. I have really been enjoying the first 2 issues, so I do recommend that one for sure. I recommend all these books. I'll let you know which one's my favorite, though. I think you'll be able to find out. Moving on to Superman, and this is by Jason Aaron and Rafa Sandoval. This was originally supposed to be drawn by a different artist. This was originally the lineup was going to be with Raphael Albuquerque. Done some work with Scott Snyder. He definitely did a lot of covers for DC, like on the Batman Detective Comics title. But he was going to do Superman. There was sadly some conflicts with his schedule because of the flooding that was happening in Brazil. So my heart goes out to him and his family. I hope everyone's okay. Everyone else on this lineup had like a year to set up these books and get it ready. But because of the swap at the last minute, Rafa had much less time. It's still a very impressive comic. it looks amazing. So you really couldn't tell. There's no shift in quality or anything like that. It's a really fun sci-fi take on Superman 2, kind of updating what Krypton would be and really looking at what the House of El crest means versus like the Science Society. Really setting up like this class war kind of story, which is really fun because, the origins of Superman really do go back more to like a blue collar savior. He was really like a hero of the people fighting corporations and automobiles and factories and, really keeping it ground level. And this Superman is a little bit of the same. So we have that the people that wear the House of El crest are like the workers, the L's, they're the laborers. And there's the scientists that are a much higher part of society. So when Superman comes to Earth, he is much more inclined to help the downtrodden. And we also just get a different kind of like Superman is kind of just traveling the world, helping out people. He's not like the American way. He's just here for the world. And so we get him helping overseas. But they're running into these peacemakers. These are kind of like an army of peacemakers. And we see that Superman's here to look out for these workers. We also see that his powers work a little bit differently here. They say that he's sun-starved, so he definitely is a little weaker at night, and he's stronger during the day. He needs to kind of like power up. But you see how he is like a sun god. But we see he's standing up for his crest, and we learn the big kind of difference is that Superman was a little older on his planet before Krypton ended. But then we have Absolute Wonder Woman. And I gotta say, this is my favorite book of the bunch. And I think it really outlines what I'm saying of like doing something different. This book kind of surprised me. So we get Wonder Woman and we're taking her back to her mythological, magical roots, which is always a really fun place to take the character. One of my favorite Wonder Woman books was Justice League Dark by James Tynion. And I really liked her place on that as a magic character. And here we got a really cool look at Wonder Woman as kind of like this magic Lovecraftian protector of Earth. And she's arriving in her skeletal Pegasus through the clouds, her awesome like warrior helmet. She just looks so awesome. And the page layouts here. So this book is by Kelly Thompson and Hayden Sherman, with colors by Jordi Belair. And really, this team is firing on all cylinders. I'm not as familiar with Hayden Sherman's work, but really impressed me. I really like the kind of like open line art style, and I think it really gives Jordi a lot of room to play as well. But these pages are amazing. Awesome character design. She looks just like so intimidating. I really like the choices that Hayden's making here with panel shapes and how they're using the whole page. It really reminds me of J.H. Williams' work on Promethea with Alan Moore. But we get this look at a change to Wonder Woman's origin where she is here hand-delivered to Circe in hell by Apollo, and she's decreed to never say the word Amazon. She bans it, so now she can't even say Amazon. I saw a joke that it's like, this is like the one world that would take Jeff Bezos down. Apollo leaves this witch with this baby, and she's like, sure, the baby's gonna die, but the baby ends up being way more formidable than she expects. This reminds me of that scene in Hercules where he fights off that serpent. So playing with mythology of all types here. And we see just that even in hell, Diana is here showing care and love, and she's spreading that even in this dark, hateful place. But really cool look at time passing. Overall, awesome layouts. Really cool book. Like, yeah, this is just what a cool way to show Wonder Woman growing up here, as we're just using these like 3 spreads to show her grow up and show the space change, how just having this child in Circe's life like warms up her living experience and kind of makes her into a mother and gives her a little bit more purpose. It's a really great human story, and then we also get this awesome Cthulhu-like H.P. Lovecraftian horror mixed in with it. Yeah, I don't want to show anything else off on this one. Check out Absolute Wonder Woman, big fan. But don't just check out Wonder Woman. All these books are awesome. I think these are all saying that they are part 1 of 5, so it'll be interesting to see where we go after 5. We do already have a Wave 2 announced with Absolute Flash by Jeff Lemire, Absolute Martian Manhunter, and Absolute Green Lantern by Al Ewing. Hoping that doesn't kind of like weigh the Absolute line down. I really think when publishers are like laying the groundwork for these, they really need to tread lightly and just make sure people are even on board with their offerings already. I know they've got a lot of orders for these so far, but could be speculation. I want to see how these kind of play out and if they are going to land the ending on a lot of these titles or how they pass the torch to the next creative team. But Big missed opportunity. You should have made these all flip books, so people would have been buying both Batman and Absolute Batman and all this stuff, and they would have been hooked on both. You messed up, DC. If this just lit your fire, if this just got you interested in checking out some more comics, why not check out some of mine? Because I'm a self-published cartoonist. You can find all my work at danegeorges.com. And on that website, you can find Doom Skull, which is a series that I self-publish about an ex-supervillain that works at a grocery store with his minion Bag Boy. I have 3 issues of that in print with a 4th on the way. You can also find my zines like Jigglybub, The Passenger, and my collection X-Ray, which is a book of my 4-panel webcomics that I post on Instagram, Tapastic, and Webtoons. You can find all that and way more at danegeorges.com, which I have linked in the description below. But thank you so much for watching this video, and if you've watched this far, I can't express to you how thankful I am. You're the best. I don't know if you guys knew this, but I do have a membership link. You can hit that button below. You can join. You can get videos early, connect with me. I'll post them behind the scenes. And if you haven't, please consider subscribing to this channel. I post a new video every week, or at least I try to. I really try to. So you know you can expect some fun content like this here. But thank you so much for watching. And until the next one, remember to think and read dangerously.